Well, for more on what's happening in Syria right now, let's speak to Fadel Abdul Ghany. He's the founder and chairman of the Syrian Network for Human Rights and joins us from Doha. Fadel, always good to have you with us here on the programme. So first, let's pick up, if we can, on that report that's come out from Human Rights Watch in the past 24 hours or so. What do you make of the news that Syria is being seen still as not a safe country to go back to?
Yeah, the report confirmed that the refugees being subjected to different scale of and types of violations, which is like some of those violations amount to be crimes against humanity. We are talking about torture in systematic way, and also we are talking about forced disappearance. We are talking about sexual violence and extortion. All of those violation, lots of refugees who's been back subjected to from the Syrian regime. And I think that the report is confirming and extending what the Commission of Inquiry referred to and the Amnesty International report. SNHR participated in this report by providing data and testimonies via victims who's been subjected to those types of violations.
Fadel, let's then go to the news of today of those two incidents of dozens of people being killed, the bombing in Damascus and the shelling in Idlib. I mean, what do you make of what we may be seeing here? It would seem as if an attack on regime soldiers has brought a very deadly response from the regime.
Yeah, firstly, from a legal standpoint, the Syrian regime, as well as the Russian forces and the Iranian also, is in an armed conflict. Therefore, targeting them is permissible. And the opposite is right also. So the parties can fight each other in respect of IHL. What's not permissible, however, is targeting of fighters in civilians area. And if that targeting leads to killing or injured civilians, which is like well known as permissibility attacks in principle in the national law. I think that the timing of the attack in the favor of Assad regime for several points. We don't know, first of all, who's committed the bombing. This need intensive types of investigation is difficult, and no one is believing what's the statement coming out of the regime. The regime is totally out of credibility. First of all, first point from why this attack in the regime favor of the timing I'm talking about. The regime today committed a brutal massacres in Ariha in Idlib, lead to kill 12 civilians, including 3 children and their teacher. Secondly, the report, which you referred to, the Human Rights Watch report, the regime is know that this report will be published at this time. Thirdly, the videos which is being published by a Syrian Alawite activist named Suzanne Ali being greatly affected the loyalists of the Syrian regime. Finally, the Syrian regime has shown again that he's exposed to terrorism and bombing during Geneva talks. I don't think that the regime is scared about the life of neither the civilians nor the military persons, whether they are loyal or opposite. They are all tools for staying in power. And obstacles the regime want to use them to prevent any type of change to democratic rule. So in conclusion, what I wanted to say, there will be no stability in Syria while the regime is still exists. And I think Syria will never move toward stability and democracy while the regime create these obstacles against the transitional justice movement in Geneva.
And Fadel, that said, of course, there is moves on in Geneva right now to try and sign a new constitution, and it would seem at this stage in the war as if the regime are not going to be defeated. So how do you see the future of Syria coming about with the regime, in some regards, staying in place?
You are right. The regime is not going to be defeated militarily, but like the stand against the regime, like opposite this regime due to like intensive committing crimes against humanity. We are seeing the Human Rights Watch report and another report that will prevent any political connection with the regime. So these statistics will remain the same. And if mainly the Russian didn't abandon the regime and move with the international community, with alliance such Turkey, such UK, such all the other countries toward pressure the regime to like move ahead. Otherwise, the regime will never move ahead. The regime is still receiving like back support from the Russia and from the Iranian. Otherwise, the situation will remain the same, killing civilians, more refugees. The refugees will never be back. That's what the report referred to. In spite, the reports mentioned totally that in spite of all obstacles being created by the Lebanese government and the Jordanian government, it's less than the Lebanese obstacles, like very few percentage who is returned to Syria. So that's very clear, actually. So 13 millions will remain displaced. Half of them, 7 millions, we are talking about being refugees.
Okay, Fadel Abdul Ghany, the founder of the Syrian Network for Human Rights. Always appreciate having you on, sir. Thank you very much for being with us.